Sean Stone, my favorite surfing Amazon marketer. How are you doing?
Doing good. Thanks for having me.
It's always a pleasure. There's very few people that I talk to on such a regular cadence as you. We mastermind together every week in our Amazon PPC / Amazon marketing mastermind. And it's great to have you there. And I'm excited for you to be on the show and drop some tips, tricks, and strategies to make people's Amazon advertising life a little bit easier and a little bit more profitable.
I'm hoping that I'm bringing the value today. I think I've got a lot of really handy stuff. A lot of it was just born out of necessity for my own agency. So a lot of the stuff is fast and should be pretty valuable because it's something we use every day.
Can you give us a little overview of what's new in the agency over the last year? How has that been going?
There are a couple of things that have definitely been what I would consider developments in the Amazon space. One of them obviously being that fees keep going up. And so because of that, getting organic sales has never been more important because all those are sales you don't pay for. And so in order to get more sales,
sales you don't pay more than the Amazon fee.
Yeah. It's only 15% instead of 35%, And so that's been a big factor. Another factor that I don't think we'll talk too much about on this call is external marketing, specifically TikTok. TikTok has been really powerful for a lot of Amazon sellers, and you can kind of use TikTok and Amazon as a 1-2 punch. That's been another really exciting development in the Amazon space, or in the, marketplaces space.
I have a general belief that, that with that first point that you mentioned about Amazon fees continuing to rise and, causing a profit squeeze for a lot of people. I think Jeff Bezos famously said, your margin is my opportunity or something like that. There is something built into the DNA of Amazon to monetize as much as they possibly can. So increasing fees has been part and parcel for what Amazon has done over the years, making it really difficult when you work with brands. They're getting squeezed on their end, and then they come to you to, kind of fix everything, please. So it can be really challenging for service providers to operate in that space. And of course the brands themselves. So I completely agree with that component, which is why, tips and strategies like you're about to share, which I absolutely love. The listeners are in for a treat because it just expedites optimization faster. I think that as digital marketers or working in the field of digital marketing, anything you can do faster than your competition, you have an advantage. Anything you can do more efficiently or more effectively than your competition, you have an advantage. So that's part of the reason why I love the industry. I don't know if you like it for the same reasons, but I love knowing that for all the customers that I have, there are competitors of theirs that are out there that are trying to muscle them out. And I love the idea of how do we insulate our clients to protect them against fee increases? How do we insulate them from competitors chomping at their heels or potentially trying to push them down the ladder? I love that. I was just talking to someone, they're like, man, my top competitor does 3 times as many sales as I do. What's my strategy? And I love just going off on tangents, analyzing everything and seeing what the new, the way in could be. I just absolutely love that. I'm curious, for you, seeing a year like 2024 was, how do you stay energized in an industry that, sometimes feels like, you're fighting on a uphill battle?
I mean, for me, it's strictly just because I love it. I think it's one of the most interesting things you can possibly do. Selling products on the internet is kind of like getting to run little mass psychology experiments every single day. And so for me, it's I get to run another experiment. I get to do another thing. I will say it can be really draining because, there are brands are suffering and there are things that brands can do about it, but it's a set of trade-offs and there's a lot of hard decisions that need to be made. But I think the brands that are going to make it through this are going to be a lot stronger than maybe somebody who was trying to treat this as more of a set it and forget it kind of business.
And I think for service providers, one key ingredient that I feel sets the great ones apart from the rest is you really do need a genuine desire to actually help people, because like if you don't have that genuine desire to like want to wake up and like celebrate the wins and like get to the wins, it's just like the wrong industry for sure.
Yeah, I got into this because I genuinely like helping people. I think this is such an interesting experience, and I love it.
Yeah.
I wake up thinking about this stuff.
I also like to like when we make our customers more successful, like they can go out and have more successful families, they could be more productive in their communities. There's like a cool cascade effect with B2B services. Speaking of B2B services and Amazon optimization, let's actually get into it. So I first want you to walk me through, we're going to be looking at how to iterate quickly and improve listings using AI in a way that is accessible by anybody, using tools that almost everybody has. I want you to first take me to like, what was the inception point at coming up with the system we're about to talk about? Like, what were you struggling with? Like, what did you notice and why did you bother to create this system?
Whenever it comes to doing anything on Amazon, you always need to look at it from a keyword lens, or for somebody who's maybe not as familiar with Amazon, an SEO lens. We're looking at which keywords can we put in which place in order to rank our listings the best on Amazon, and then hit them with Amazon ads to kind of drive up our ranking and sales velocity. So it's kind of, I keep using this phrase, it's a 1-2 punch. You put the right keywords in the right place, and then you advertise on those keywords because they work. Whenever we realized, okay, so it's time to try to rank for a different keyword, or the keywords that we're going after, we can't necessarily convert on them that well, that would lead us down the path of needing to rewrite a listing. If you ever need to rewrite a listing, you'll know that it can take hours, because you need to filter all the keywords, then you need to decide where all the keywords will go based on their search volume or their keyword sales volume. Once you do that, you need to actually write the listing in a way that makes sense for a human, because Amazon will penalize you if they catch you just stuffing keywords everywhere. But you still want to stuff as many keywords as you can with a standard approach. And then you need to fill out your back-end keywords and all that kind of stuff. And then it needs to be put into a format so that the listing can be updated. If you are not the one who's doing the listing updates, because sometimes, Amazon will lock your listing, and then next thing you know, it takes forever. It takes like 2 days to update the listing. It's kind of like this ongoing thing. It can become a 10-hour, 20-hour project really quickly. And so you don't want to do it. And then what if somebody says, I need you to do 4 listings at once, which has definitely happened to us. So what we ended up doing was we took all the key principles. So like maintain phrases, most important stuff in the titles, then bullet points, then description, then backend keywords. And you take all that kind of stuff and you can standardize what it is, because, I don't even know how many listings I've created. Been doing this since 2017, but I've created a lot of listings. And so the principles have always been kind of the same. It's like that midwit meme, like take all your key phrases and put them as high up in the product detail page as possible. Then like crazy, super focused stuff. And then back on the other end, it's like, maintain your phrases, put them in the most important places. All that is to say, we basically realized that because this is all happening in the English language and all we're doing is adjusting based on 1 or 2 key criteria, either sales or search volume, or, or impressions if we're using the search term report, we realized that we can do the same thing over and over again. And we realized there are 4 key use cases that you end up having to do this for. And each of them can kind of be customized. So we just said, why don't we make the best employee ever and have them do all the listings for us on demand? And so we did, and we made it free.
You mentioned something in the beginning there, which is, find your best keywords, put them in the best spots on your listing. Yeah. And, that sounds so simple. And when you talk to a lot of Amazon sellers or brands on Amazon, a conversation often goes like this, where you might ask them, when's the last time you did that? Or like, do you agree that that's important? And of course they'll say it's important, but like through the chaos of what it is to be on Amazon, it is very likely that, you might have needed a double check in the beginning when you initially made that listing, or maybe you're putting, 20, 50 products on Amazon, you're coming over, you're new to Amazon, you're sort of putting, 10, 20, 30, 100 products on there. You didn't have the time to really be strategic about all of this. I find a lot of times people are very formulaic. Like some brands are very formulaic, like they follow a format and they just throw them on Amazon, which might not be the optimal format, because really, like, you learn being on Amazon. So even if before you launch, you do as much keyword research as possible, and then you launch your product listing as good as you possibly can, since you've launched, every single day you've earned some data for the lifetime of it. And like, you can actually use the data of like what you're appearing for, where are you in the rankings, like what your most successful search terms are. You've just learned data that you actually need to go back and update and then potentially do periodically. So there's a lot of information there's so much information that it's not so much like knowing the right way to do it. It's actually like taking action on it and coming up with a systematic way to do things that you can really suffer from analysis paralysis on, because I've done it myself. I've seen people do it. You agonize over what words to put where, and you're like, should I say this word or should I say this other word? Should I say stair or stairs if I'm selling like a carpet that goes in your stairs? Like, how many variations of the word carpet should I mention? Should I mention variations of the word carpet, or is the word carpet enough? Like, all of these different things, you can go off on tangents of asking questions, where it's just like, I can't spend 10 hours on every single listing, every month. There's not enough time for it. So like, any advantage you can have to speed up this process is exactly what we're going to do today.
Yeah.
So what does the promised land look like? Like, once you have this down pat and you do have a systematic way, which we're about to get into, you do have a systematic way, like, what is the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow here? Like, what do you actually get when you have a systematic, efficient, and effective way to ensure that your listings are putting their best foot forward?
So first of all, I will say that in the defense of brands that want to be formulaic, I actually think there's a use case for that, especially if you are a like Shopify first brand. Our use case is a lot more Amazon first or marketplace first centric. But what's the promised land look like? Well, every time that there's a shift in seasonality, which you can find using different tools, and you could also look at your historical search term data if you have it. If you are able to kind of think critically about when your seasons change, because even if it's only micro seasonality, there's still seasonality. Like, not everyone's selling pool noodles, but you'll still get a pop and a dip at some point across the year. So once you can identify your seasonal trends, you can start to use something like this to update your listings a lot more frequently. Now, I'll be honest, we don't necessarily update our listings proactively a lot. We normally do it when we find an issue or are trying to solve a problem. And the reason is, if we have something that's working, we really don't want to make any changes. So really, this tool is about solving your problems in a fraction of the time with a higher quality bar than asking a low-level employee.
How do you know a product, like you just mentioned, you use it to triage problems and fix problems? What problems are those? Like, how do you know if a product needs a little product listing refresh?
Yeah, so we kind of identified 4 key problems. Problem number 1, you need to make a new listing. It's never been made before, and you want to make sure that it's an Amazon-centric listing. Problem number 2 is search term data. So, like you said, we've earned all these new sales. We've earned all this new data through our hard-fought PPC dollars. Why don't we use that data to adjust our listings so that we show up on the keywords where we convert using paid ads? Third is when we are getting beat by a competitor in one way or another. So sometimes there will just be a competitor who is doing much better than us. We look at them and we say, like, their price isn't better, their offer is not better, but they're just outranking us. That is the perfect use case. And especially if there are multiple, and I'll plug 2 different tools. Helium 10 and Datarova both have the ability to kind of do this. They've got their own demos, so I don't think we should go through that today. And then the 4th use case is finding new search queries using the search query performance report. So you can use reverse lookup tools, you can use search terms, but sometimes you'll just find a new keyword that skyrocketed and they didn't show up in your search term report, or they don't show up for your competitors yet. And so that's where you find those net new terms. We can put our Amazon tinfoil hats and talk about why these new queries show up. But putting that aside, there are new queries that show up inside of Amazon all the time. And you can try to take advantage of that by using the search query performance report.
I just had a client, they had no idea their product was not optimized for this. And they randomly noticed Diwali terms started showing up on their search term report and like converting quite well. And like they were not optimized for Diwali, but it was like Diwali season. And they started to notice a lot more search terms. And there's like countless numbers of these anecdotes where people had no idea that people search this kind of thing. There was a statistic on Google, and I don't want to butcher it now, but there was a statistic on Google that Google used to release, and it was basically an argument for using broad match because Amazon and Google both want you to use broad match. And the reason why on Google, it was because I'm just searching really quick, what % of search terms never searched before? There's a large percentage of search terms that were never searched before. So Google says that every year, 15% of search terms are new and never been searched before, meaning, and they've said that for quite a number of years. So I guess like this is, I still see it in 2022, Google saying that they're still reporting that. And I mean, it makes sense. Like think about all the new AI tools that were never searched before. So like, just think of, that's probably more than 15% as people are searching, all these different random things related to, using AI for spreadsheets or, poetry or haikus. Like just think of that entire family of searches that was never searched before. So I don't know that Amazon, I don't ever seen released a stat like that, but like search trends change surely.
Yeah.
Think of like toy trends or something like that, or gifting trends.
Yeah. But even more mundane things, like Amazon will just randomly add a word in the middle of a popular search term. Then next thing you know, it's a new search term that isn't getting picked up by exact or phrase because they threw a word in the middle. So if you don't have,
Yeah, I saw a meme earlier where a marketer was like, my job is so mundane because I just spent 4 hours talking about optimizing our SEO for the ampersand or the word and it's like, yeah, I have been there. I've also talked about stuff like that.
Yeah, that's so true. That is
so
true.
So moments when you need a product page refresh, number one, of course, when you make a new listing, you're refreshing from zero. When you have a lot of new search term data, so basically time has passed and maybe things are a little stagnant.
Yeah.
When you're getting beat by a competitor and you want to gain some traction on them, when you find new search queries in the search query performance report. I would also, one of those you mentioned too is like, I'd probably also say like conversion rate dips or like click-through rate dips, like where you're seeing things sort of stagnate. Yeah, that's sort of in the second one that you mentioned. Basically, I sort of interpreted your second point as when you have new search term data as sort of just like the data is different now than it used to be historically.
Yeah.
So we have a lot more of it, so we have more confidence, or it's actually like different performance, like this quarter versus previous quarter is different now.
Yeah, completely agree.
When we talk about, we're about to talk about, we're focused, I believe, on titles, bullet points, descriptions, backend keywords. So basically the word-based optimization for product pages, which is, I like to put those in a separate category than graphic design work to basically do the exact same thing. Like how do we do graphic design to improve our interactions with customers and ultimately boost our organic rankings? The words-based component, I've always put in a different category because like if it's just words, usually the person doing keyword research, bid optimization, PPC management understands keywords and words enough to take advantage of this. Whereas that person who's doing like the PPC work is usually different than the person who's doing the graphic work. So I love that this is the topic. And do you sort of put those in the same bucket of work? Do you draw the same separation here where it's just like you have word-based optimization and then you have image-based optimization and like that's for somebody else to do?
I do see them as separate, but I think the person who's doing what we're doing should be telling the graphic people, first of all, what text should be put on the images. And then secondly, what the images should look like based on the text. For us, the big thing is we don't do graphics. We'd rather give you a world-class graphic design person, like connect you with somebody, and then we'll be the world-class PPC people. I've seen too many times where somebody tries to be world-class at both, they end up being world-class at neither. And so that's kind of our approach, is we'd rather get somebody else who's world-class to come in and do that for you. And so, but putting the keywords into the images can be very important.
Right.
And because we have seen, or there's been evidence that suggests that Amazon is reading those images now. And when they read those images, that also gets factored into your ranking.
Big time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, what is it a picture of? What is going on in the picture? You know, I mean, any AI tool can do that these days. You take a picture, drop it into any tool, ask it to describe it. It'll get it. So then sort of using that information as sort of extra words that will eventually go into your product. So I think we've set it up enough. We're about to jump into a custom GPT you built. We're going to talk about what to use it for, how to use it, what kind of information goes into it, so that we can improve our listings quickly, efficiently, and give it the maximum SEO value. Without further ado, let's jump into it.
I'm just going to share my screen and let's do it.
Let's do it. I'm excited about this. So we have a link to the custom GPT in the description.
To be clear, there's no email sign up. There's no nothing. All you need to do is have a free ChatGPT account. This works for free. No money needs to be exchanged. We have a web. Yeah.
Do you need a paid account in order to create a custom GPT? I think so.
I think so. Yeah.
But to use them, you can use a free account.
Yeah.
So for those that don't know, in case they are living under a rock, let's teach them something outside of Amazon marketing. Let's teach them a little AI optimization here.
Yeah.
What is a custom GPT? How does it differ than just going to ChatGPT, starting a conversation from scratch?
Yeah. So basically what you can do is, so you click this drop down and you can actually edit the GPT. And so this is the configuration. And then these are conversation starters. I may end up editing these. And then you can upload knowledge here. And then under the create section, you fill out your instructions. So you can't see the instructions I put in because I've already entered them and trained the GPT. But yeah, you just need to go to listing generator by Stone's Goods. You search that inside of custom GPTs and this comes up. The other thing you can do, we have a web page. It'll be in the bio. Again, no email sign up. You don't need to agree that I'll contact you. It'll literally just be a place you can go to click the link to go to the ChatGPT page that looks like this. And so a custom GPT is just a GPT that a person trains on a specific use case. And so I trained it based on our process to create listings that have a whole bunch of different keywords. And I thought, why gatekeep? Let's share this. Give it to the community. Hopefully it will add some value to somebody.
Heck yeah. Yeah, I love using custom GPTs. I think whoever has to go to ChatGPT and other tools have their own versions of this as well. So Google has Notebook LM, and where same concept where you put in custom information and then you can continue to converse with it knowing your custom information or your custom instructions. I use custom GPTs all the time to sort of have a consistent context. So I would generally say, if you're using ChatGPT and you're starting multiple chats around the same thing, multiple new chats around the same thing every time, you'd be better off creating a custom GPT so that you can create a new chat within that custom GPT and it knows the context of what you're trying to accomplish every time.
Yeah.
So this is a great tool for anyone who works on the computer, for sure.
So how do you use this thing? There are these conversation starters, but they won't work because you haven't added a report yet. So what you need to do is build me a listing based on this report for and then you put the product name here. So just what's the the main keyword or the easiest way to describe this product? So for this example, we're actually going to use robot vacuum. We were looking at robotic grass mowers before we jumped on here because we honestly we're just both interested. But we're going to use robot vacuum. That is the keyword that we're going to be going after. And so we're going to do this from the first problem, which is that we need a listing based off of vacuum, based off of the fact that we are trying to build something from scratch. We don't currently sell robot vacuums, but we want to. And so the first thing you need to do is so we're going to do this with Helium 10. I also could do this with Data Robo. That's another tool I like. And the general thing we're doing here is we're just coming in here. And first thing I like to do is sort by search volume just to see if there's anything. So we probably don't want cordless vacuum cleaner. We don't want competitor. We don't want carpet cleaner. So really, we generally don't want competitor names. And Little Robot, I think, or Litter Robot, yeah, we'll keep that. So all we're trying to do here is just get rid of like the stuff that's not related to what we sell.
So just recapping what you're doing here, you are basically scanning through this. You are finding competitor branded terms, which of course are no-nos to use in your listing. And you are also looking for things that it is not. So you are using your human brain. I know that we're using ChatGPT here, but I agree with you. All of anything listing built or keyword tools, and this has been true since the origin of keyword tools, because like you typed in, robot vacuum in Helium 10 and it gave you some stuff that is actually not relevant. So I wouldn't even take this sheet and then ask ChatGPT, like, please get rid of the things that are not relevant, because it's going to misfire.
Yeah.
So like for now today, I still like the concept of like using a tool to generate keyword ideas, but then using your brain, your weak, feeble, inferior human brain to actually scan through. I mean, you as in the listener, not you as in Sean Stone, but yes, using our feeble human minds to do some kind of scan through to ensure that what we want to do is what we want to do. I was watching, and that is true with any keyword tool, I think.
Yeah.
Like do a manual scan to ensure it is what you want. It is worth the effort for sure.
Well, and the other thing, and I need to say, is the custom instructions do say not to use competitor brand names. I'm doing this more to be proactive. And the other thing that we need to remember is this is going to give us a new listing, but that's our first draft. We still need to check it ourselves based on what we find important. So there are many different ways.
Yeah, I always tell people this. So like if we create a new tool ourselves and we release it to people then think like, okay, I'm done, right? I don't need to do any work related to my PPC anymore, right? And it's like, well, no, actually, you're taking that task and you're shrinking the time down to, you're reducing it, but like you should still, like, that's not the way that economic productivity works. Meaning if you have ways to do something faster, you've actually just created an opportunity to do more stuff than you did previously.
Yeah.
Which a lot of economists might have a lot of thoughts on, or labor people, where it's like, if we're like 3,000 times more productive than somebody was in like the 1950s, why are we still working so much? Like, couldn't we just, have the same quality? Like, couldn't we just, anyway?
Yeah.
But yes, we're like way more productive. So like use the productivity gains that you get with any technology. I'll get off my soapbox.
Yeah. So for this example, we're going to pretend that we've cleared out everything we don't like. And so now we're going to go File, Save As, and I'm going to call it Mike's Robot Vacuum. I'm just going to save it as a CSV.
Yeah.
So now I'm going to go down here and I'm telling it, build me a listing based on this report for a robot vacuum.
Yes.
Upload from computer. And so here we go. And so this is what we're going to see. So it's analyzing, which is always nice. It's important to consider this.
And just for those two, for me too, if you could explain why using a custom GPT for this purpose is more effective than vanilla ChatGPT, where you just walk up to it and you do the exact same thing. So like, why is this better than just going to ChatGPT, putting in a keyword research or a search term report or whatever, and just saying create a listing from that? Like, what is the difference here?
Well, the difference is that ChatGPT will build you a listing, but it won't be built on any principles. So it'll build you a listing based on just the information you provided. It won't know to put the most important stuff in your title. It won't know to maintain phrases. It's all the custom instructions that make this useful and make it helpful. So technically there's a whole bunch of stuff in here that, I mean, honestly, this looks like a pretty decent first draft of a listing. What I would do from here is I would now...
The formatting is pretty good too.
Yeah. And so, this title, I mean, all the key stuff is in here. Now, what we could do is, if we wanted to edit it, we could say something along the lines of, our product does not mop. It is not Alexa compatible either. Update the listing again based on this new information.
Where do you weigh the inputs versus feedback? Meaning, I don't know if it was in the initial list, in that keyword list initially, but like, was the word Alexa in there initially? I'm curious how you think about the prep work that goes into the initial prompt versus continuing to converse with it.
So the initial prompt is always the same. Build me a listing based on this report for and major keyword. And that's all you need to do because it's used to that. It expects that the first request will be that. And then all you need to do from there is you're just requesting iterations. And so if it says something that's just truly irrelevant for what you are trying to sell, then it'll remove it in the next iteration. But what's really nice here is that it will just fill out all these different things, and you don't need to rework every single sentence yourself. You can just take this, and now what I'll often do is I'll plug all my major keywords into the Helium 10 listing writer, but you can use any tool of your choice in order to make a listing, and you can compare, are all the major phrases in there? Are they maintained? And you can just kind of minor edit. And then the last thing I'll do is sometimes I'll export from Helium 10 and put it back into this tool and say, is there anything I'm missing? Would you change anything? And so that's how you get a new listing quite quickly with all of the key or the major keywords that you were looking for. A lot of that's really like fancy stuff, but if you're just looking for the 80-20, you've got it right here. Plug in the keywords that matter with their search volume and sales volume, and then ask the GPT to write you a listing that really just makes sense for your business.
And, the obvious question too is like, let's say, what separates a great listing versus a mediocre one? Meaning, if someone is newer to listing optimization, or maybe they're good and they're trying to get even better, like, how do they know what was spit out is good or great?
So it's really about the title. If you have a title that's short but has all of your real key features all in one place, that is going to be the most useful outcome from using a tool like this. And then from there, taking more of your long tail phrases down here. As you can see, it tells you what phrase it's kind of like trying to put in the bullet. So you can't just copy and paste this. You got to copy this and leave this out, or leave this out.
I see. So it's giving you some rationale of why it chose those bullets, which is nice.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't do that for everything, but if it notices something that has a lot of volume, then it will try to call that out for you so you know what's going on. And I mean, perfect for pet owners. This is like one of the key reasons why people buy robot vacuums. They need to vacuum so much more than somebody who doesn't have pets. And at some point, it just becomes an irritating chore that, $200 can easily solve. So that's really the thought process behind this tool is how do we find those phrases that really matter and make them easy to put into your listing in a way that makes sense.
And so let's just recap. So obviously when you're making a new listing, boom, when you have a lot of new search term data, so like time has passed or data is different, can you run through or just sort of talk through how this process might look different if instead of a Helium 10 keyword research report from scratch, how would it look if like you were putting in search term data?
Yeah. So we're not going to be able to use search term data because it's not very easy to get example search term data, but here are the two.
For the purposes of it, like a demo.
Yeah, for the purposes of a demo.
Right.
We're going to use this magnet keyword research right here. But we're going to say, build me a listing based off of this report for a robot vacuum cleaner. Actually, I didn't have the comma last time. I know that doesn't really matter, but what I end up doing most of the time is I will plug in, if I have to, I'll use a search term report from Amazon. But a lot of the time what I like doing, and full disclosure, I'm an Ad Badger customer. I love the feature in Ad Badger where you get to look at 180 days worth of search term data, because then you can pull out long range search term data and plug it in here. So instead of a helium-10 magnet report, what I like doing is I like pulling out 90 or 180 day search term data. Or if you have a very seasonal product, you can go back to last year's search term data and plug that in. And while we're kind of just talking about this, if instead this is your first time selling during a highly seasonal product, you can go to, if you have access to it, you can go to last year's search query performance report or last year's brand analytics report for that time period, and you can plug that in here instead and use that as your report that you will be using in order to make the listing.
I actually have for you an anonymized search term report if you wanted to use it for this demo.
Love it.
I just sent it to you on chat. Yeah, so I have one locked and loaded, ready to go, which has already been an anonymized search term report. So like the ASINs have been swapped, the search terms have been swapped. It looks like it's for sofa protectors, and it has like real data.
Let's go.
Yeah, but the words have been swapped to protect the innocent.
Okay, we're gonna download this and just, we'll do XLS just to show everyone that we have a different, you can do it in multiple formats. And so this is gonna be a sofa protector.
Yep. So that's actually interesting. So on the search term report, this anonymized product is for a sofa protector, but there's like some other data in there too for like their other campaigns as well. So like not only let's say sofa, but yeah, so you can do sofa protector for sure.
So I've tested this with a lot of search term reports, including for accounts that sell vastly different products.
Right.
Like still related, but like one is really small, one's really big. It will just take out the thing that you're looking for.
Cool.
And then there we go. You see, it just tells you what it's going to do before it actually does it. For a second, I thought it decided to do something different.
Right.
But yeah, now it's analyzing. This may not be the exact format that I've used. Oh, it's still going. You go, listing generator. You go.
That's right.
Yeah. But.
Yep.
Okay. Great. Oh, there we go.
Cool.
All right.
Yeah, red sofa protector, durable.
Yeah.
Non-slip couch cover for pets, kids, and parties, waterproof and washable. Slip cover for sofa protection.
Look at that.
I mean, it reads really well. Like it sounds like it's well written.
So, and now we can adjust it if we want, but we'd probably need to read through it first. So yeah, red sofa protector. I mean, yeah, this is a lot of the key stuff that I would put into a title. Washable. I might move washable further up, because
how would you make that decision?
So generally speaking, waterproof and washable are two of the key features that I think people care about when selling sofa covers or when buying sofa covers. And so this is a great example where durable, I mean, is durable actually making a lot of sales? Not entirely sure. But what's really nice to see is that these are the terms that are making the most sales, which is why they decide to put it up at the front. Although, let's just see if that is anywhere as a phrase. Okay, so why didn't you put as a phrase in the listing? Please add that to the title or bullet points if possible. Then push washable, and what was it? Waterproof. Up the listing title as well, as those are key features. Make sure factor orders in.
You're also inspiring me to like look at Ngram data too. So like the word washable, I'd be really curious for an Ngram report on this product to see like, okay, the word washable and washable variants do quite well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, look at that. Okay, so now this is a much more optimized title, although I would want these to be after the dash. Okay, one more title edit.
And just think out loud, why would you want it after the dash?
Because red sofa protector is the highest performing search term, so I want the title to start with red sofa protector, washable, waterproof, then the rest of the title as standard or as is. So yeah, that's a title that I would feel confident putting up on Amazon. And again, that's without even looking at the search terms or doing kind of the good old-fashioned style analysis. I just know that is a lot of the keywords that matter based on the original analysis that we saw here. Now, the way that I would do this if I were to do it manually is I would obviously first filter for the product by portfolio, hopefully.
Right.
Then I would filter by search terms, or I would create a pivot table by search terms. And then I would take all the most important search terms, plug them in, and then start writing the listing based on that. So what's really just so powerful here is that we can kind of skip 3 or 4 steps of analysis and jump into the thing that matters the most just by understanding what it is that are the key levers inside of an Amazon account. And so red sofa, surprising, but yeah, red sofa is the top perform term.
So the data here has been like swapped around slightly. So it's not the perfect example.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like basically the thing that you would go into talking to the custom GPT with is, of course, what are your most successful search terms ahead of time? And then be sure that you have the GPT has prioritized those terms for sure.
Yeah, exactly. And so then you can still do manual checks. You could still have a human review this the same way you would.
Right.
But you're already starting with a first draft. And
right.
Yeah, you should be able to do this a lot faster, especially if you already know your products quite well and you're able to maybe filter for some of the stuff that matters and exclude a lot of the stuff that doesn't matter, because that's the kind of thing that the GPTs will not be able to figure out on their own. So, there's that old expression, garbage in, garbage out. So as long as you're not putting garbage in, it's going to give you something pretty good on the way out, at least in my opinion.
Let me ask a question that I know people can agonize over, which is for product titles. For your custom GPT, you went with dashes. Some people use pipes. Is there any consequential difference you've noticed if like people put like the pipes or the dashes?
Not really. Maybe it makes it easier to read. Maybe it makes it harder to read. It really depends on what your opinion there is. I normally try to use as many commas as I possibly can because it's a character fewer than if you use a pipe or a dash. Just because if you look at it like red, comma, sofa, and then red, pipe,
space,
sofa, or red, dash, sofa, we're wasting one character on all these. Actually, does pipe save you a character? Is that what I'm seeing here?
Well, you have to put a space before and after, as opposed with a comma. You can put it right next to the word.
Well, no, but I'm saying, is there some advantage to pipes over dashes? I've never.
Oh yeah, you're talking about the space that it takes up on the screen. Yeah. But it does look like there might be a little pipe advantage.
Yeah, there may be a pipe advantage that I've never considered.
Because a pipe is thinner than a dash.
Well, here's the thing. I can update this. So if somebody really likes this tool and they want to use it, but they want changes, I can either make a V2 or I can update just this one and, add some new instructions that maybe switch to pipes, or you could tell it for the Amazon title, switch to pipes instead of dashes. Let's just see. There we go. You can do it that quickly. And like I said, you can specifically call out edits on just that section, and then, okay, give me the entire listing with the new pipe title. So you don't need to scroll around to get all the work that you need. You can just ask it for everything again, and it'll give it to you, and you have your final product right here. Now,
Awesome.
There are some drawbacks, which we haven't talked about yet, of using a tool like this. So maybe we should cover those really quickly, like to proceed with caution. Especially if you are someone who either works in a larger organization or a very brand-centric organization, one of the issues we've run into is that our copywriting may not always meet brand guidelines. We try to look at things through a very specific Amazon lens. And so if somebody's got very specific brand approaches, or there are things that are on brand and off brand, this tool will not solve for that problem. That's a human check. That's a manual thing you need to do. Or you could create a custom GPT that writes for that brand. But again, that's not something that we can do because every brand is different. The other thing is you always need to check yourself. So check for irrelevant terms, check for banned terms, check for things that don't make sense, check for things that don't apply to your product. Because especially in search term reports, you'll find keywords that you convert on that don't actually apply to your listing. And what's happening there is somebody is looking on that search term, then finding your product and saying, actually, I don't care about that feature, and converting. But trying to rank for that feature is probably not a good idea. So brand guidelines, irrelevant terms, banned terms, because we don't want somebody to get their listing taken down because of this tool. So please always check this before uploading because you can get in trouble.
And I think one thing that comes up as we wrap here is like, how do you know it was effective?
Keyword tracking software. We will usually use multiple keyword tracking software tools. So again, Helium 10 and DataRobo. That's the way that we'll track our keywords. And then usually what we'll do is we'll create single keyword campaigns inside of our campaigns. And then we'll give them specific naming conventions so they're very easy to look at inside of Ad Badger or inside of Campaign Manager, so that we can just be sure that the keywords are relevant and we're tracking the performance of them over a given period of time.
And what would you generally expect? Like, I've heard people ask this question before, which is, if I go and do some SEO based optimization for my products, am I just going to shoot up to number one? Like, what would be a reasonable expectation for doing just this, like PPC strategies aside, like just doing pure word-based optimization like this, like for the keywords that we put in prominent positions? Give me your expectation. Like, how do you know it was successful?
So generally speaking, I won't do one or the other. You need to do both because they feed each other. But imagine I just update my listing to match my PPC terms that I'm already converting on. Generally speaking, as long as the conversion rate doesn't change when I do this, then I would expect my rankings to improve on the keywords that I've migrated into my title. If for some reason that doesn't happen, or if your conversion rate decreases, then that can be a symptom of a bigger problem, which is either the market changed or maybe that new title didn't really make sense for those keywords. You will occasionally see that kind of thing happen. But if all goes to plan, then you will get a new, more optimized title based on whichever data source you provided in for whichever problem you're trying to solve. And by doing that, you're going to get better organic ranking, ideally a lift in conversion rate because people will see the word they're searching for in your title. And then ultimately more total sales and more organic sales, or at the very least, a decrease in your total acquisition costs or tacos. That's generally speaking what we end up seeing. The primary metric to consider is your keyword ranking. Secondary metric is definitely your tacos, and other secondary metric being your advertising conversion rate or your unit session percentage, which is your collective conversion rate.
Let me ask one follow-up question. So like if you look here, we have backend keywords, red sulfur protector, washable, so on and so forth. I imagine if I do this exercise, I'm going to take these keywords, put them into Helium 10 or whatever my favorite rank tracking software. If you're on a budget, maybe you're just going to Amazon every day and you're typing these in. But let's say that I pick those keywords, and I always ask this question, and I don't know if there's a general consensus of what people expect or if it's random or anything, and maybe you could elaborate on it. But like I've heard people ask the question of just like, if I optimize for these keywords and like, let's say all of these are in anywhere from like position 7 to position 40, if we were just to do like a random number thing there, like imagine a client pressed you and was like, okay, like what do you expect the ranking to be in the next 30 days or next 2 weeks? Like how long should they wait and see if something took a change? Like how fast does the change happen in rankings? Or, what would be a realistic expectation? Like what if they said, I want to be in top 5 for all of these terms? Would you say that's unrealistic? Or would you say like, maybe we can move these from an average rank of, 20 to maybe 10, or, help people wrap their heads around like what to expect after they do something like this?
Okay. So, the real gains on Amazon are not going from 40th place to 10th place. They're going from 10th place to 5th place. And the real way that you get those gains is, obviously back-end keywords can help, but where your real gains are going to come from are from your product title. And then after you make product title changes, it's really about the sales velocity you have and the conversion rate you have on that keyword. So it's always, and we like to benchmark our keywords. So you can get it from keyword tools, or you could actually calculate it yourself by combining the search query performance report and the Amazon brand analytics report. And you can use that to determine what a benchmark conversion rate is. Then if you perform above that benchmark and you are getting sufficient sales velocity, then you should expect yourself to be able to climb up into the top 5. Once you're in the top 5, that's where all the real magic happens. Because just let's go robot vacuum cleaner and just see. And we're recording this on the first day of Black Friday sales. So sponsored, 1, 2, 3, all sponsored.
You're counting the amount of sponsored placements.
Yeah, organic placements.
Okay.
And then sponsored, 5. So that, like all those scrolls got us to the top 5 organically. Now we can keep scrolling and like, here's 6, here's 7, here's 8. That's an ad. Here's 9, here's 10. Going from 10th to 5th.
Right. Massive.
Is going to be much bigger for your business than going from 40th to 10th. And going from, let's say, 5th to 3rd, that's like another step order change. So realistically, what you want to do is you want to decide what are the keywords that matter the most to you and really use that prioritization strategy to your advantage and just put the stuff that really matters in your title at the front and then focus on trying to rank in the top 10 to start, but then top 5 long-term for those turns.
Yeah, there's definitely a key component to all marketing online, which is just like really strong product market fit. Like if you have, and when I say that product market fit, I mean like if Amazon put you in position 1, if you are able to architect a perfect listing and whatever and get into position 1, you will fall if nobody's buying from you. Like Amazon's not going to do that long term as a favor to you, but because like if position 2 and 3, 4, 5 are all converting much better than you are at position 1, you're not going to stay there very long. Incredible product market fit is a key component to this. So I remember a couple of weeks ago I was giving a presentation on some of my like product optimization stuff. And I remember, and I said that of like strike zone keywords, like it's better to go from, and I remember you like writing in the chat, and I always get hyped up when you hype me up like that. So thank you. But like, yeah, you're absolutely right. Like going from position 40 to 30 is a pretty big percentage change, but like going from 8 to 3 is way more massive. Yeah. I just did a share of voice in Jungle Scout Cobalt, and like the first product had a share of voice of like 40%, and then the next one had like 20, next one was like 17, 18, so on and so forth. And then by the time you got to position like 8, the share of voice was single digit, and then by the time you got to position like 20, it was like less than 1%, all the way down to like position 50.
Yeah.
So like the difference, and this is true just in general, on any search-based platform, it's like the things at the top are going to get the most clicks for sure, which is why PPC advertising on Amazon is so powerful, because those top placements are almost always sponsored. Sean, we've been talking for an hour. You've given immense value, especially around like the mindset, and just even with this last question of how you answered it, it was tremendous. Like the really good thinking about all these moving parts is really valuable. It's probably more valuable than knowing how to do the thing, because if you only know how to do the thing and not like why you're doing it or how it all connects, you're going to be lost when the thing changes, as it always does. Yeah. Thank you so much for coming back on the show. We have links to Stone's Goods, which is your marketing agency, in the link. We have links to this custom GPT in the description. I can't thank you enough for spending some time here on the PPC Den podcast. If you can provide some words of motivation for everyone out there who is maybe feeling intimidated optimizing their listing, what would you leave them with?
It's not as scary as you think. And as long as you don't break the rules, then it's a two-way door. You can always change it back. More than anything, this is a game of optimization that often the smallest things can have the biggest impact. And yeah, just treat it like you're in a science lab every single day, and suddenly it'll go from scary to fun, because that's how I feel every day. So yeah, I really hope that I provided value. I always love coming on this podcast because it's always such a value-centric podcast. So thank you for creating an environment where we can share helpful stuff. I hope everyone got value. And if you have feedback on the GPT, let me know.
Right on. Thank you so much, Sean.
Thank you.
Everyone else, I'll see you next week here on the PPC Den Podcast.